Yes, it is. Welcome in. Warriors Live here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you until 5 o'clock as we get ready for Dubs and Sixers from Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, although it has not been very kind to the Sixers so far this year. Philadelphia 20-38, and they have lost, count them up, 9 games in a row. The 76ers have 20-38, 9 consecutive losses. The 49ers, I got breaking Deebo Samuel news on my mind. The Warriors, 32-27. They have won 5 consecutive games. They are as hot as they've been all season. They've won 5 consecutive games for the first time since very early in the season when they won 5 in a row to become 7-1 early this year. This Warrior team is playing great basketball right now. It's Warriors and Sixers from Philly. Tip is in about an hour at 5:30, which means I've got you covered again until 5 here on 95.7 The Game. Welcome in. Mark Randy with you. Warriors Live presented by Xfinity. Stream sports from the best seat in the house with Xfinity. Bring on the good stuff. Again, the Sixers 20-28. They're 12th in the Eastern Conference. And if you look at the standings, it feels like they've got a shot still at some postseason basketball, at least postseason hopes. They are only, believe it or not, despite being 20-38, 3 games out of the final play-in spot in the Eastern Conference. They're 3 games behind the Bulls for 10th right now, but they just got some bad news on the injury front. Joel Embiid, who has been in and out of the lineup all season long, especially of late, he has been officially shut down for the rest of the season. Joel Embiid out for the year. He will not play the rest of the season for the Philadelphia 76ers, and it seems like there might be some long-term concern with Embiid as well. But for the Warriors' purposes, he will not be playing today. The Sixers 20-38, losers of 9 games in a row. They began this season very cold. They were 3-14 to begin. They had an okay stretch. They got back to 13-17, so they won 10 of 13 at one point. But since then, it has been just absolutely pitiful. They're 7-21 in their last 28 games. They have losing streaks in that stretch of 7 games and currently of 9 games. They are really, really struggling. And when you consider who they have on their roster, they still have, some decent players. I mean, Tyrese Maxey is one of the more fun scorers in this league. You got Paul George, who you signed to a max deal this past offseason. That has gone terribly wrong. He's still incredibly talented, though, and has been playing a little bit better of late, but it's been a disastrous season for Paul George, to the point, by the way, that he has halted his podcast. You can't call him Podcast P anymore because he's not podcasting, because he said he's focusing on trying to help Philadelphia win a championship. Well, I got news for you, Paul. Without Joel Embiid healthy, even if you play out of your mind, this team is not winning a championship. Right now, they're 20-38. And again, they're 3 games out of the 10 seed in the East, which means they're 3 games out of the final spot in the play-in in the Eastern Conference. Meanwhile, the Warriors, again, they're playing arguably their best basketball of the season. They're 32-27, up to 7th in the Western Conference. They have the same record as the Clippers for 6th, but the Clippers do have the tiebreaker over the Warriors. The Warriors, remember, they began this season 12-3, then went 13-23 over their next 36 games. And now they're 7-1 in the Jimmy Butler era. And most recently, they had a come-from-behind win in Orlando back on Thursday. Warriors win that game 121-115 behind 56 points from Steph Curry. He went 16 for 25 from the field. He went 12 for 19 from downtown, 12 for 12 from the free throw line, helped turn a 17-point first-half deficit into a 12-point lead at one point in the third quarter. Ultimately, the Warriors hold on and win by 6, 121-115 for their 5th consecutive win, their 7th win in 8 games with Jimmy Butler on the roster, and the Warriors have shot up the Western Conference standings. Again, as we take a look at the standings now, it is honestly unbelievable how fast the Warriors have climbed up to the 7 and really tied for the 6th with the Clippers. They were hanging out in 10th, down near 11th before Jimmy Butler got into town, and now the Warriors all the way up to a tie with the Clippers for the 6th seed in the Western Conference. We were talking a few weeks ago about the 6th being maybe a pipe dream for the Warriors. Now it feels like the expectation, anything less than the 6th seed, might be a failure for the Warriors. They might have a chance to be able to climb even higher, and maybe they got their eyes on the 5, or, hey, you never know, maybe even the 4 seed. we shall see how it all plays out. Speaking of what's going on around the Warriors in the Western Conference, let's get you caught up on some of the important matchups from yesterday around the NBA. Specifically, the Knicks beat the Grizzlies. Why is this important to the Warriors? Well, if they have dreams of maybe climbing even higher than the 6, they're going to need someone in the top 5 to fall down. The Grizzlies are one of the teams that is currently falling. They're 5-5 now in their last 10, including yesterday's loss to the Knicks by a single point, 114-113. With that result, the Grizzlies are now 6 games ahead of the Warriors in the Western Conference standings. So still a lot of room between those two teams, but keep an eye on Memphis. Also, the Suns beat the Pelicans yesterday. They blew them out 125-108. This probably doesn't really mean much to the Warriors. The Warriors have put a big amount of space between themselves and Phoenix. Warriors now 4.5 games ahead of Phoenix. And as it currently stands, Phoenix on the outside looking in of the play-in. The Kings own the final play-in spot as the 10 seed. The Kings have a 3-game advantage on Phoenix. The Warriors have a 4.5-game advantage on Phoenix. Keep an eye on Phoenix, but I think for the Warriors' purposes, the only way Phoenix becomes relevant to the Warriors again is if the Warriors don't continue to play good basketball and they ultimately end up fighting for a play-in spot, not for a spot potentially in the top 6. Elsewhere around the Western Conference, the Jazz, this was a big one for the Warriors. The Jazz beat the T-Wolves yesterday by a single point. Of note, Anthony Edwards did not play in that game because he picked up his 16th technical foul of the season in their loss in their previous game to LeBron and the Lakers, which means he gets suspended for a game as a result of picking up that 16th technical. So he did not play in Utah, and the Jazz knocked off the Wolves. The Jazz just picked up their 15th win of the season, doing the Warriors a big favor because now with Minnesota's loss, the Warriors have a full game advantage on Minnesota. The Warriors, again, tied with the Clippers for 6. A half game behind them is Dallas. A full game behind the Warriors is Minnesota. They're sitting at 32-29. The Warriors sitting at 32-27. And then the other meaningful game in the West yesterday, it's the one we've already referenced because the Clippers are now tied with the Warriors. It was the Lakers beating the Clippers. I think I hate to admit it, and I think a lot of Warrior fans probably feel the same way. The Warrior fans probably should be Laker fans moving forward the rest of this season. Maybe not to the point where the Lakers get to the 3 seed, because there's a chance the Warriors are the 6, and I'm not sure the Lakers are the best matchup for the Warriors. But when the Lakers are playing the likes of the Grizzlies and the Rockets and the Clippers and the Mavericks and the T-Wolves the rest of the year, you should be rooting for LeBron, Luka, and the Lakers to win those matchups to help the Warriors solidify themselves potentially in the top 6 of the Western Conference. So ultimately, those results yesterday for the Warriors, pretty good. The Wolves lose and the Clippers lose. Those are the 2 most important results, and the Warriors got them to go their way. Meanwhile, today, of course, in addition to Warriors and 76ers in Philadelphia, elsewhere in the West that has impact on the Warriors, Kings and Rockets. This is an interesting game, and this game tips off in about 20 minutes or so from Houston. Now, this one's interesting because you have the Kings, who are a game and a half behind the Warriors, and you have the Rockets, who are currently the 5 seed, and they are 5 games ahead of the Warriors. So if you're the Warriors, you could make a case that you want both teams to lose, and that would obviously be ideal. But if you had to pick one, which team are you rooting for in this matchup? Is it Houston or is it Sacramento? Because a Sacramento loss gives the Warriors a little bit more safety in terms of avoiding the bottom half of the play-in tournament. But if you're the Warriors, I think you feel pretty confident about your ability to stay in front of Sacramento regardless, even if they start playing better basketball. So honestly, you might be rooting for the Kings to knock off the Rockets, which then increases your potential likelihood of maybe leapfrogging the Rockets before the regular season is over. The Rockets are 5 games ahead of you. Let's just pretend that the Kings win today. They beat the Rockets and the Warriors win. That would mean the Warriors would only be 4 games behind the Houston Rockets when the night is over. And that would make it certainly possible the Warriors could catch Houston, and that would mean they have a decent shot at potentially the 5 seed in the Western Conference. So just to make that a little more likely, I think Warrior fans might be rooting for Sacramento against the Houston Rockets in that game coming up in about 20 minutes or so from Houston. So we'll keep an eye on that one as the night goes along. And of course, I will let you know that the final score of that one, as will Tim Roy during the broadcast, but I'll also keep an eye on it and bring it up for you post-game on Warriors wrap-up tonight. Another game in the West to keep an eye on, Spurs are at the Grizzlies. The Spurs are too far out of it for the Warriors to care, and Wembanyama is also out for the rest of the season. So what the Spurs do doesn't really matter to the Warriors. But similar to the Rockets' idea, if the Warriors want a chance to step even further up the Western Conference standings, you might be rooting for Memphis to lose a few basketball games as well. So keep an eye on Spurs and Grizzlies. That game also tips off in about 20 minutes. And then the last meaningful game in the West, and this is by far the most meaningful game in the West other than the Warriors game tonight, it is the Bucks at Dallas taking on the Mavericks. That game tips off at the same time as the Warriors in a little less than an hour at 5:30. The Warriors currently a half-game advantage on the Dallas Mavericks as we speak right now. And that is, again, the Warriors in the 7 seed technically, although they are tied with the Clippers. But if the season were to end today, the Clippers would be the 6, the Warriors would be the 7, because the Clippers have the tiebreaker on the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors a half game up on Dallas. If Giannis and the Bucks beat Dallas in Dallas today and the Warriors win, they would put themselves a full game and a half ahead of Dallas in the Western Conference standings. So keep an eye on those 3 games today across the West, in addition to Warriors, Sixers, Kings and Rockets, Spurs and Grizzlies, and Bucks and Mavericks. Those are really the only games you need to worry about if you are a Warrior fan interested in scoreboard watching tonight. All right, speaking of this basketball game tonight, let's get to our injury report, which is brought to you by Boxer & Gerson, Northern California's premier workers' compensation law firm, helping injured workers get their lives back for over 40 years. For more information, visit boxerlaw.com. First of all, for the Golden State Warriors, Jonathan Kuminga is still out. The latest on Kuminga is that he still needs full clearance from the training staff, but there is a chance that he plays Monday in Charlotte, and that would be somewhat of a soft landing for Kuminga, who hasn't played now in nearly 2 months. Last game he played January 4th at home against the Memphis Grizzlies. By the time that he returns, again, as early as Monday, which is March 3rd, that would be almost exactly 2 months to the day. And again, against a Charlotte team that is probably more interested in losing basketball games than winning basketball games, that might not be the worst spot for Jonathan Kuminga to make his return, but he still does need full clearance from the training staff before that happens on Monday in Charlotte. Then the Warriors are in New York against the Knicks on Tuesday, and they close out this 5-game road trip on Thursday in Brooklyn against the Nets. Elsewhere for the Warriors, that's a big one. Jimmy Butler missing his first game as a Warrior. Jimmy Butler is out with a mid-back spasm. This does not seem to be something too serious. I wouldn't be shocked if we see him play on Monday, but much like Steph Curry and Draymond Green, there's going to be these maintenance days where, these older players are going to need some time off. The challenge for the Warriors today is, can they look better than they did without Jimmy Butler before the trade? Can they look better without Jimmy Butler tonight when they take on the Philadelphia 76ers? Down Jimmy Butler and down Jonathan Kuminga, which means we will see a change to the Warriors starting lineup. And we can talk a little bit more about that as we move forward here on Warriors Live on 95.7 The Game. But let's continue with our injury report brought to you by Boxer & Gerson. On the 76ers side, Joel Embiid is out, as I mentioned early. He's now out for the season, dealing with left knee issues, and man, his knees have not cooperated with him for the majority of his career. He is out, and again, officially announced yesterday as out for the season. Kyle Lowry, right hip injury management, he's also out. Eric Gordon underwent surgery on his right wrist. He's out for the season. Rookie sensation Jared McCain. You remember he had an amazing first month of the season, looking like he was going to be a lock for Rookie of the Year. He then tore his meniscus in his left knee, had surgery. He's also out for the season. Paul George dealing with an injury to one of the fingers on his left hand. He is available and will play in this game today, but no Joel Embiid, no Kyle Lowry, no Eric Gordon, and no Jared McCain for the Sixers, who will take on the Warriors again without any of those dudes. But they do have Paul George available for this game tonight, and that is our injury report, as always, brought to you by Boxer & Gerson. All right, Warriors Live, it rolls along here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you for the next 10 or so minutes. Then I'll hand it off to Tim Roy and company out in Philadelphia as they get ready for Warriors and Sixers from the city of brotherly love. The Warriors' first and only visit to Philadelphia this season. They played Philadelphia at home earlier this year, and the Warriors won that basketball game. If you remember, it was Joel Embiid who re-aggravated his injury in that game and missed a chunk of time as a result of that re-aggravation he suffered here at Chase Center. the Warriors get their second go at the 76ers, trying to make it a clean 2-0 series season sweep against the 76ers with a win today. A win would also mean the Warriors would win their 6th consecutive game, and that would be a new season high in terms of a win streak for the Golden State Warriors. They won as many as 5 in a row, their current number, all the way back early in the season to improve to 7-1. All right, Mark Randy with you. Warriors Live presented by Xfinity, at home or on the go. You'll get the fastest internet to all of your devices. Let's keep it moving here with our Take It to the Bank prediction. And today, my Take It to the Bank prediction, which is brought to you by Fremont Bank, full service banking, no compromises. I'll make it a little a twofer in this one today. Even with Jimmy Butler out tonight, I'm going to stick with this because Jimmy Butler, of course, has had a big impact on the Warriors and their ability to get to the free throw line. I think the style with which the Warriors have learned to play in these 8 games with Jimmy Butler on the roster, I think it's going to impact the way that they play even without Jimmy Butler. So I will say the Warriors will shoot more free throws than the 76ers, and they'll win this game. In the Jimmy Butler era, which is 8 games, the Warriors are 7-1 in those 8. The Warriors have shot more free throws than their opponents in 5 of those 8 games, shot less twice, and shot the same amount once. In those 5 games in which the Warriors got to the free throw line more than their opponents, the Warriors are 4-1. So pair that with the win, and that's my Take It to the Bank prediction for tonight. That is the Jimmy Butler impact, which I think kind of goes beyond Jimmy Butler's presence on the floor, because the Warriors have kind of been conditioned to play in a new way, at least offensively, and I think it's going to impact the way we see them play even without Jimmy Butler on the floor today. So again, my Take It to the Bank prediction, brought to you by Fremont Bank, full service banking, no compromises, is the Warriors will shoot more free throws than the Sixers, and they will earn a win tonight. This kind of takes us into all the other ways in which Jimmy Butler has impacted the Warriors. And how about some of these numbers? Let me just run through them with you. And it's going to take a bit because there's so many ways in which the Warriors have been improved by Jimmy Butler's presence. Points per game, points scored per game by the Warriors. Pre-Jimmy Butler, 111. Post-Jimmy Butler, 122. So 11 more points per game. Rebounds per game are about even. Assists per game is about up by 3, 28.5 to 31.5. Turnovers per game, from 14 per game down to 12 per game. And by the way, 12 turnovers per game for the Warriors in that stretch, the last 8 games, that's third best in the NBA. How about steals per game? That's up by about 3 per game, from 8.5 to 11.5. Those 11.5 steals per game, second best mark in the NBA during that stretch. How about free throw percentage? Warriors up from 72%, which was worst in the league pre-Jimmy Butler, to 86% since Jimmy Butler entered the lineup. That was worst to first, literally worst free throw percentage pre-Jimmy Butler, best free throw percentage post-Jimmy Butler. That is the Jimmy Butler impact. And it's not just the percentage, it's also just the number of free throw attempts. Free throws attempted per game for the Warriors pre-Jimmy Butler, about 20. Post-Jimmy Butler, more than 24. So add more than 4 extra free throws per game, and you make them at a much higher clip. That is the Jimmy Butler impact on offense. But it doesn't stop there, because this is also Jimmy Butler on the defensive end. Warriors are allowing about 6 points fewer per game since Jimmy Butler entered the Warriors lineup. They are allowing 4 fewer assists per game. They are forcing 5 more turnovers per game. Opponents are shooting worse from the field, and they're getting to the free throw line less as well. The Jimmy Butler impact can literally be felt in nearly every single aspect of this basketball game, in this basketball team, and the way in which they play on the floor. It's been impressive to see the impact of Jimmy Butler. And oh, by the way, maybe the most important way in which he's impacting this basketball team is his impact on Stephen Curry and freeing him up and allowing him the ability to put up big numbers without having to exert quite as much energy. How about this? In the Jimmy Butler era, 8 games for the Golden State Warriors with Jimmy Butler, and the Warriors are 7-1 in that stretch, in those 8 games. Steph, in those 8 games, 30.5 points per game, 4 rebounds per game, 5.5 assists per game, on 51% shooting from the field and 44% shooting from downtown. That's 30.5 points per game, 51% from the field, 44% from deep. Just let's take his unanimous MVP season for reference, right? The 2015-2016 season, now 9 years ago, when Steph became the first and still the only unanimous MVP in NBA history. He averaged 30 points per game. In these 8 games, Steph averaging more than he did that year. He's averaging fewer rebounds than he did in that MVP season. He averaged 5.5 per game back in 2015-16. He's also averaging fewer assists per game now than he did then. He averaged nearly 7 per game in that MVP season, but he's shooting a better percentage from the field in this 8-game stretch than he did in 2015-2016, and the three-point percentage is also pretty comparable as well. So I'm not saying that Steph is playing at a higher level than he did when he was the unanimous MVP, the first and only in NBA history 9 years ago. All I'm saying is, ever since Jimmy Butler's come to town, life has been a whole lot easier on Stephen Curry. And of course, Steph deserves a lot of the credit himself. He's obviously been a lot better, and he's making his shots, but he's also getting more consistent open looks. And a big part of that is because of what Jimmy Butler does for the Warriors on offense. He just demands attention from others, and that's a big reason why Steph is able to get more open looks. All right, let's wrap things up with our out-of-town NBA game of the night, sponsored by the San Francisco International Airport. Wherever your team goes, you can get there from SFO. There are only 6 games around the association tonight, including Bucks and Mavericks from Dallas. I talked about this game a little bit earlier today. You probably should be rooting for the Bucks. In fact, not probably. If you are a Warrior fan, you're rooting for the Bucks. And the Bucks themselves, they're in a fight for the 4 seed in the East. They're currently tied for that 4th spot with the Pacers at 33-25, and they're only 1 game ahead of the red-hot Pistons, who are currently 6th in the Eastern Conference. The Warriors, again, should be Bucks fans in this one because the Mavericks are 32-28, just 1/2 of a game behind the Warriors and the Clippers, who are currently deadlocked at 32-27 for the 6th and 7th seeds in the West. Anyway, this game between the Bucks and the Mavericks tips off at 5:30 in Dallas, so it's too late to get down there for this matchup, but SFO can get you down to Dallas whenever you need. The Warriors, they already were in Dallas a couple of weeks ago, and they don't return the rest of the regular season, but there is a chance we see Warriors-Mavericks in the play-in or the postseason potentially, and if that happens, SFO can help get you down there for that game, no problem. And, of course, SFO can also get you down to Dallas for any Warriors-Mavericks future matchups, including next season, and that is our out-of-town NBA game of the night, sponsored by the San Francisco International Airport. Wherever your team goes, you can get there from SFO. All right, about a minute left with you here on Warriors Live on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy with you. I'll be back for Warriors wrap-up once this thing ends. Probably sometime around 8:30 or so would be my guess when this game ends. You'll hear Tim Roy hopefully talk to a Warriors player post-game because that means a Warrior win, and then I'll be standing by after that to take you through everything that went down in Philadelphia for the Warriors tonight. That is all coming up later on today here on 95.7 The Game. Warriors Live is presented by Xfinity at home or on the go. You'll get the fastest internet to all of your devices. It's the Warriors on a 5-game winning streak against the Sixers on a 9-game losing streak, and it's coming up next here on 95.7 The Game. Tim Roy standing by in the city of brotherly love. He brings a tip-off coming up next right here on 95.7 The Game.
It's game time, Bay Area basketball fans. Whether you're flying out to catch an away game or taking them